In Senior Assisted Living Facility in Glenville, New York. My name is Wayne Clark. I'm with the New York State Military Museum. Sir, for the record, would you please state your full name and date and place of birth, please?
Francis H. Miner, M-I-N-E-R, Glens Falls, New York, on August 29th, 1925.
And did you attend school in Glens Falls?
No, actually my home was in Hartford, New York, and I went to the Hartford High School. It's 15 miles east of Glens Falls.
And what year did you graduate?
In 1943.
And do you recall where you were when you heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
I would imagine I was home, but I'm not 100% sure. I think we were listening to the president's address of stating about being attacked, like that.
So you would have still been a high school student back in 41.
Absolutely.
Now, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, for the next couple of years before you went into the service, did you notice a change in the way your life went, and the community, and going to war?
In the community, yes. Not so much because I was still underage for anything, but there were other people, young men that I knew that was going off to the service. Since I graduated in 1943, and I got my notice in September 10th, I believe it was, and I just turned 18 last of August.
Now, did you get involved in any kind of scrap drives or anything like that while you were still in school?
I was involved in the aircraft watching.
Oh, really?
We had an old bus body or something like that that was used for the base, and with a section in the top that you could stand up and look around and see what was going on.
And how long were you involved with that? Was that like in your senior year of high school?
Yeah, it was the senior year, so it'd probably be about 8 or 9 months.
Okay. So you graduated from high school. You went into the Army in December of 43. So you were drafted?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you go for your basic training?
Basic training, they sent me down to Camp Landing, Florida. On the way down, we stopped off at Camp Upton on Long Island, and then from there down to Landing.
Did you go by train?
Yes, both of it.
Now, was that your first time away from home?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any other guys from your community or town?
Not from my town. There were several from the general area, but I think most of them was probably right around this area, Albany and that sort of thing. And we gathered in Albany and then went down by train to Camp Upton.
And once you got to your basic training facility, what was your training like?
Well, it was not very pleasant. We learned to walk with the 40-pound backpack, and since we were assigned at that point in time to a heavy military unit, we were carrying machine guns or base plates for mortars. And of course they said, if you can carry them here, you got to carry them for the 25-mile hike, so that's what we were doing. But over and above that, the worst thing about Camp Landing was the swamps in Florida. And for some of us who did not like snakes, it was very difficult to go out there and go through the swamps, especially on nighttime training. But we did it.
Now, when did you graduate from basic training? Was it like an 8-week course, or was it longer than that?
It was a total of 17 weeks.
Oh, 17 weeks, okay. So Did you have advanced infantry training too? Or did you go on to any other training after basic?
No, that was the only,
That
just
was
the
it?
basic, yeah.
Okay. Now what happened once you graduated?
We all got a 10-day home leave
Mm-hmm.
and come home, and then I had to report back to Fort Meade, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they sent us on down to Norfolk, I think it was Norfolk anyway, to be shipped out as trainees.
Okay, so you were shipped over to Europe?
Yes, we ended up in Italy
Okay.
after 15 days on the ocean.
Do you recall the name of the ship you went over on?
It's in that book. I think it's the Crystal Robin or something like that.
Okay. Was it a converted passenger ship or was it a
They
troop
called it a
ship?
military troop ship, so
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, did you get seasick at all?
No, I think I was too scared to get seasick.
Did you travel in a convoy or single ship?
It was a single ship part of the way, and then we joined a convoy about halfway across the ocean. And I swear, every day from then on, it was one day you go up to the top of the deck because you might have a submarine offshore,
Mm-hmm.
or you run down under deck because there was airplanes you thought might be coming in overhead.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very difficult to know what to do the rest of the way in.
And so your first stop was Italy?
Yes, we stopped at the port of Naples and went to Count Sciano's farm, which was Mussolini's son-in-law who owned the farm, which had been taken over for a military base.
Okay. Now, do you remember the approximate date you landed in Italy?
Oh God.
Well, it would
As a
have.
matter of fact, yes. I can give it to you here. So they could.
Let's see if I see it here. Well, that's all right. We can look for that later.
Yeah, I landed in Italy on July 15th,
July 15th.
1944.
Okay. Okay. So now, once you landed, were you in a replacement facility or?
Yes, it was a replacement facility.
Okay.
It was a tent city.
Okay.
And one of my first chores was to stand guard at the ammo dump. But we were a little disturbed because being new recruits,
Mm-hmm.
they would not give us live ammunition for our guns.
Uh-huh. That's typical. Now, what unit or division did you end up in?
Well, I ended up in the 3rd Infantry,
Division?
the 3rd Division, yes,
Okay.
and the 30th Regiment, Company I.
3rd Regiment, Company I?
Yeah,
And did you stay with them for your entire
the rest of
length
the time, yes.
service? Okay. When was and you were trained as an infantryman,
Yes.
and when did you first see combat?
Well, we went from Italy to France as they were striking in the southern France. And let's see. That was on September 4th of 1944.
Mm-hmm.
And we proceeded frontline duty on up through France,
Mm-hmm.
the rest of 44, and then to 45.
What about casualties? Were they moderate or heavy? Or?
Well, I think at the time we thought it was pretty heavy, but I guess looking back at it, you would say moderate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did you have much contact with the civilian populace at all in France?
Some, but not a lot, because we were pushing the Germans back, and therefore we had very little time to worry about civilians, other than make sure that we weren't striking them with heavy artillery or any of the rifle, if we could help it.
Now, what kind of living facilities did you have? Obviously, you were in the infantry and you're out on the front lines. Did you have tents or?
No.
No tents?
Had what you carried on your back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically a rain slicker. And other than that, what you wore is what you had.
What about your clothing? Was it adequate for the temperatures and climate?
Yes, it was adequate, but later on in the year, as we got into the Christmas season, December, our particular unit was allowed to get about 3 days off line to go back and get winter clothing and get a bath for the first time since we got in France. And,
Were you involved with the Battle of the Bulge?
I would say yes. I didn't realize it at the time, and we were at you might say, the south end of that problem. And actually, what was happening, the Germans were being pushed back from above and coming down into our area. And then we were trying to push them the other way.
Did you take many German prisoners?
Yes. Not a lot. It was mostly, my particular group would take 2 or 3 at a time. There was not any large groups that we took.
Were they mostly soldiers that just gave up and surrendered, or were they wounded, or a combination?
I think it was probably a combination, but because it was very close, and then within a few days in close contact with them, we were on Hill 616, and we would push off the Germans, and then they would turn around and push us off, and that happened 3 different times before we could actually hold the hill.
Okay. Now, that hill you're talking about, was that in Germany or still in
It's
France?
still in France.
Okay. When did you end up going to Germany?
Not till after I had been captured.
Okay.
We were going across a small river, and I can't tell you the name of it, in, I guess you would call it Alsace-Lorraine area. And my platoon and squad was given the duty of being the first one to cross to serve as a bridgehead on the other end, so that our tanks could follow us across. And my squad got across, and we set up a little perimeter, if you will. And then we were waiting for the tanks to come across, and they never did. And neither did supplies. And it wasn't until a few years ago, when I read the history, that in the history book of the 3rd Infantry, it shows that particular bridge with a tank that sunk in the middle of it. The first tank across sunk, and that stopped all the other traffic from getting over to us.
So you guys were more or less on your own?
We were on our own. There was, about a dozen of us total, and 2 of us decided, okay, we're out of ammunition, now what do we do? And we went and hid in a hayloft, farmer's barn. And of course, that didn't last very long. German soldiers found us.
Now, were you wounded at that time, or
No.
That was after?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What happened at that point when you were captured?
Well, we were captured and taken to their particular headquarters, locally,
Mm-hmm.
and
No, there's just two of you that were captured at that point?
at the point, yeah, two
Okay.
of us. Yeah.
Okay.
And questioning us, about our group and how many there was in the group and how many tanks there were, and the normal thing that you
Yeah.
go through.
Were you mistreated at all then, when you were questioned?
Not at that point in time,
Okay.
but somewhat later, I would say yes. But
Okay. All right. Once you were there for, how long were you there for, a day or two before they moved?
I think just about a day.
Okay. And where did they send you next?
Well, we were headed up toward Munich
Mm-hmm.
to Stalag. I can never think of it. 5A possibly. Yes, 5A. And that was, let's see, the name of the village was Villgen.
Okay.
And
Now, how did you get there? Did you march, or did they put you on a train, or
March.
march?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't that far. We got through to that point.
Okay. So you arrived at the POW camp.
Yes.
Was it mostly Americans there?
Yes. Just about all American.
Now, when you were marching there, were you with the fellow you were captured with?
No, I don't think I was.
Okay.
We were just kind of split apart and,
Mm-hmm.
weren't sure of any of the folks that were with the unit that got, we don't know whether they were
Okay.
captured or killed, we just don't know.
Okay. So you didn't run into at the POW camp anyone that you had known?
Not
or
that I had known, no.
Okay. And they were all mostly infantry soldiers?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And what was life like in the POW camp?
Not very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think our biggest problem was lack of food.
Mm-hmm.
We had a cup of soup, watery soup, and a third of a small loaf of bread per day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not good.
Mm-hmm. Was that the type of bread they said there was sawdust?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which we didn't believe at first,
Yeah.
but after a while we realized that the ingredient in place of flour was sawdust.
Jeez. Okay. And what were your barracks like that you were in?
It was just a big barn that they had sectioned off on both sides of a center walkway.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some, I would call them just wooden stanchions and beds of wood
Mm-hmm.
that you were supposed to sleep on. There was no padding or anything like that.
Now, did you have a blanket at all?
Nope, not that I can remember.
Now, did the barn have a wooden floor or a dirt floor? Or?
I think it had a dirt floor. That's why they built up these, I don't know what you call them, bunk areas or what it was, but
Okay. Do you recall approximately how many people were in there?
I'm guessing there must have been at least 100.
Mm-hmm. And what about heat? Was there a stove or anything like that in there for warmth?
There was a small stove, but not enough to heat the whole area.
Mm-hmm.
And that particular stove was used to heat water for coffee every now and then, or for this watery soup.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you get Red Cross packages at all?
No,
No.
none.
Okay. Were you able to communicate, write letters with the family back home at all?
Yes, we did. They had, pre-printed cards, and you were allowed to address them and sign them and send them home. But not very often, just enough to let your folks know that you were still alive.
Now, did you find out after the war if your family got your mail?
Yes, I did. In fact, most of them are in that binder that you have there,
Okay.
that I've saved over the years.
Now, did you receive any mail from your family at all?
No, there was
No?
no communication of any kind coming from
Okay.
this side.
And did you ever see any representatives from the Red Cross at all?
No.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say that. When we had that 3 days off for new clothing and so forth,
Mhm. Okay.
there was Red Cross people there. But that was it.
Okay. How were you treated by the guards or the commandant in the POW camp?
The basic old-time guard was reasonable, let's put it that way. But we did have some young SS troopers who had apparently been injured or at least offline, and they were not very pleasant to us.
Mm-hmm.
They had been brought up in the area that, just beating people was fine with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when were you wounded?
I was wounded somewhere going from the where they captured me
Mm-hmm.
to the Stalag, and I don't remember just exactly how it happened.
Okay. Were you shot or was it shrapnel or?
I think it was probably shrapnel,
Okay. Okay, and how seriously were you wounded?
just in my hand.
Okay. All right. And how much time did you spend in the POW camp? Were you moved at all, or were you right there?
No, we were there, I'm guessing, a couple of months in that one area.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I think it was that long, because during the day, several of us were taken out and made to work on the road by putting in gravel into the holes that had been bombed out by aircraft and like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they knew that our particular troops were coming up to the area, and they loaded us on a boxcar train, and we were on that for 3 days, and then they stopped the train and took us off, and we continued to march, again under very low rations and so forth for the next several days, until finally our troops caught up with us.
Hmm.
And
You were liberated.
liberated, yeah.
Okay. Now, when you were on the train, I've heard stories that they just crowded everybody in. You had no room to lay down or sit down, or.
That's correct. And no bathroom facilities.
Mm-hmm.
You just picked out a corner of the railroad car that you were in, and that was your bathroom.
And were you fed at all during that period?
Only maybe a sliver of bread now and then.
Hmm.
Nothing of any meals, because they were so busy moving us that,
Mm-hmm. Were you allowed to get off the train at all?
no.
Jeez. Okay. All right. Now, once you were liberated, do you recall what outfit you were liberated by?
I don't recall the outfit that liberated us, but they came in with ducks, and loaded us on ducks,
Mhm.
and took us to an airport right nearby,
Mm-hmm.
and put us on C-47 hospital planes,
Mm-hmm.
and flew us back to Reims, France.
Mm-hmm. Now, before you were liberated, did you know that the Americans? Well, I take it was American troops that
Yes.
liberated you. Did you know they were coming? Did the guards just take off and leave you, or?
Not until that very morning, and the reason they took off was that tanks were coming up near the barn where they had stored us for the night,
Mm-hmm.
and they fired into the barn, and as the bullets were ripping through the top of the barn, the guards took off in all directions.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as they took off, we came out waving everything we could so that the American would not fire, put their guns down lower.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were liberated at that point,
Right.
and you were put on airplanes and flown out. Where did they fly you to?
They flew us to Reims, France,
Reims, okay. And
which was a big tent city hospital.
okay, I was going to ask you if that was a hospital
Yes, it
facility
was.
there. Okay. How long were you in the hospital for?
I stayed there 30 days,
Mm-hmm.
and during that 30 days, I gained 30 pounds.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you how much did you weigh before you were captured approximately?
Well, I'm guessing it was about 160 pounds before I was captured.
Mm-hmm.
And when they weighed me in at the hospital, the nurse said, "Oh, that's 90 pounds."
Really? That's all you weighed?
That's what I weighed.
Wow. Okay. And you were there for 30 days,
Yeah.
and where did you go next?
Then they put us on another ship. The ship us back to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And we came into New York Harbor.
Now, was the war over in Europe at that point when they sent you home, or was that still going on?
I'm trying to think. I think it must have been still going on.
Okay.
It was close to being over, but
Okay. Because I know, I guess the war had ended in May of '45 in Europe, and then it wasn't until August of '45 that the Japan surrendered.
well, let's see. I probably can find out here.
So once you got to the States, you weren't immediately discharged.
No,
You weren't discharged till December of
December,
'45.
yeah.
Okay.
no. What happened to me when I got to the States? We ended up in Fort Dix, New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
and only stayed there basically a day and a half to get processed through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was given a 66-day medical leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to report back, and after that I went, when I got back, I'm trying to think when it was, I think it was September or something like that.
Let me just go back a little bit. What was your trip back to the States like aboard the ship? Was it a hospital ship, another troop transport, or?
It was I call it a troop transport,
Mm-hmm.
because the bunks were 5 high,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
at least we were getting food and it was warm and so forth. And
Was the food decent at that point?
yes,
Okay.
but most of us could not eat solid foods of any
Mm-hmm.
amount. We had to be very careful.
Sure.
In fact, while we were in the hospital in Reims, we had access to eggnog 24 hours a day. They had barrels of it,
Oh.
and told us, if you want anything, get this. Don't go thinking about eating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we gained the weight so fast.
How long did it take you before you could start eating solid food again?
I would say I'd probably been home maybe a couple of weeks, and then it was a case of more soups with things in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nothing like a big old steak or anything like that for at least a month or two.
Now, were both your parents alive at that point?
Pardon?
Were your parents both living?
Yes. Yeah.
And what was their reaction when they saw you?
Well, it's hard to believe that there was even me. Because I had gained, I'm guessing by the time I got back, I had gained probably 30 pounds.
Uh-huh.
So I must have weighed about 120 to 130 pounds,
Okay.
somewhere in that area. And so it was beginning to look reasonable again.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have any other family members that were in the service also?
No,
Okay.
no. Had no other family, basically.
Okay. All right. So you were on leave for 66 days,
Yeah,
and that brought you, let's see, that brought you through most of the summer, right?
yes,
Okay.
till September.
Okay.
And then they sent me, and I reported back in, they sent me to Fort Ord, California,
Okay.
the home of the 3rd Infantry. And for a while I was worried that they were going to be sending me the other direction.
Go to Japan.
Yeah, but they didn't. I was a information education non-com, talking to the young people who were being sent over to the
Ah, okay.
Japanese area.
Okay. Now, obviously, your division, while you were in the POW camp and in home on leave,
Right.
they were sent, that rotated back to the States, so you,
I'm not sure. I doubt if they were.
okay,
I think they continued in the fight right up to the very end.
okay, so, but you ended up with the 3rd Division, again over in Fort Ord.
The home of the 3rd Division.
Oh, the home of the 3rd, okay. Okay, I understand. All right, so was there any chance that they were going to send you to Japan, or?
Well, I thought so,
Yeah.
but I found out later that once you were a POW, you wouldn't go back
Oh, I
into
see.
active duty.
Okay. Now, what rank were you at that point?
Well, I was a private and first class, but because of the congressional movement, anybody who was a prisoner got one more stripe, so I was a corporal.
Okay. And did you have any time off when you were at Fort Ord? Or?
No,
No?
but I was only there a short time,
Okay.
from September to December.
Okay. Well, actually, if you were there in September, the war with Japan was already over.
Yes,
Okay. So they were sending probably troops to Japan to serve as occupation troops.
that's my guess, yes.
Okay. Okay. And obviously you had enough, excuse me, you had enough points to be discharged.
Yeah,
Okay, so you were discharged in December of 45.
correct.
And did you go back to New York State at that point?
Yes. Yeah, they give us our cash that we get when we,
Mustering out pay?
yeah, the mustering out pay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mine was something like $300 and something.
Mm-hmm.
And that paid for my train fare from San Francisco back to Chicago.
Oh, you had to pay your own way back?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah. We were actually discharged, and it was up to us to do whatever
Oh, I see.
we needed. But to get back to the East Coast, it was on our own.
Okay.
And that got back as far as Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next trip, I don't know what was going on, but apparently we couldn't get train ride. And we ended up getting a bus, riding a couple days on a bus to finish the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And come into Albany. And then from Albany, again, another bus up to Glens Falls
Okay.
and Hudson Falls. And when I got to Hudson Falls, it was late in the evening, late at night, and I still had 15 miles to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to hitchhike.
Now, were you carrying like a Like a duffel bag or?
a small duffel bag.
Okay.
So I stood on the corner and about 11 o'clock at night or something like that, 10, 11 o'clock, and hitchhiked. And all of a sudden an automobile came along and 4 men jumped out of it and headed back toward me and scared the daylights out of me. But it happened to be 4 men from my hometown that knew me. And so they took me home.
Nice.
And my folks had no idea that I had even got back to the country.
Hmm.
And, well, no, that's wrong. That's
They knew you were sent out to California. But
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So
that must have been quite a homecoming.
I would say yes. And I'm sure nobody slept the rest of the night. Well, I've got a couple of things mixed up there. That coming home and getting the ride that way was when I was coming back from overseas and getting the medical leave.
Okay.
Because when I got out from Fort Ord, California, there was no problem other than getting the right transportation back.
Okay. Now, once you got home, did you take advantage of what they call the 5220 Club?
I did.
Okay.
Signed up at Becker Junior College immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I got home in December, and in January went to Becker. Spent 2 years over in Worcester, Mass.
Okay. And you graduated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then went to GE and their financial training program, and spent 37 years in their accounting area.
And you retired from?
Retired.
Okay. What year did, 37 years?
I retired in 1985.
85, okay. And did you join any veterans organizations at all?
No, I did not.
Did you stay in contact with anyone you were in the service with?
No.
Okay. So obviously you probably didn't attend any reunions at all?
No.
Okay. How do you think your time in the service, obviously it had quite an effect on your life, but looking back on it, how would you say it affected you? Most people say, they matured a great deal.
You learn what the world is all about in a very short time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and do you think you would have gone on to college had it not been for the GI Bill?
I doubt it very much because my family wouldn't have had the money to get me to college.
Okay. All right. And I'm guessing you got married at some point?
Yes. After college, when I got to work GE, just a few months into the work area, and 2 of us we had met at the college, and so we got married and moved here to Schenectady.
Okay. And did you have any children?
Yes, we had 3 children,
and
right now they're spread all over the country.
Okay. Grandchildren too?
16 grandchildren because I married the second time, had 2 other daughters to raise.
Okay.
And so we have a total of 16 grandchildren, and right now I have 7 great-grandchildren.
Wow. Now, you, when I first got here, you gave me this album here.
Yes.
I'm going to give it back to you. Are there any photographs at all here?
Yes, there are.
Okay, yeah. And if I give this to you...
You can look at them.
Yeah, let me just shut the camera off for a second. All right, let me try to zoom in on this photo. Okay, this is you. Is that after basic, during basic? Or?
I would say after basic.
Okay. All right. Nice photo. All right. Anything else?
Well, these are some of the letters that I was talking about, the cards and stuff from the prisoner.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. That top one, is that what you sent your parents?
Yeah, all of these.
Okay. 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 All right. Got it. Anything else there?
Not really.
Okay.
I think most of the other stuff is, well, there's something else that,
Okay.
this particular is another picture. I think it's the same picture, but it's a
Newspaper article.
newspaper article.
Let's see if I can
And
zoom.
this tells that I'm in prison camp. Well, it
Okay.
tells that I've been missing in action, let's put it that way.
Okay. Unfortunately, I can't zoom in on it, but that's an article that says you were in a POW camp.
Yeah, well, that I'm missing in action, doesn't
okay.
say POW.
Okay. Let's see.
And this is just a letter that I had written home somewhere along the line, and the newspaper decided they wanted to print it, so.
Let me just see if I can get closer and zoom in on at least the headline. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't get the text, but okay. All right. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
No, I don't think so. There's one, I got a whole bunch of stuff here I can give you if you want to add to it. It's got more of the specific information.
Is that a copy? I don't want to take
This is
anything
a
original.
copy. Oh, this is a
Okay,
copy.
okay. And I'll just add that to your file.
Yeah. There's, let's see, I think there's 4 pages of things that I must have written right after I got out of service. Well, when did I write? I wrote it in 1945, probably during my illness leave.
Okay,
And then there's another several pages that I put together. For a historical society meeting. They were at a Veterans Day, they were having all of us at the group that were in service write up a little article. And so I did that, and that's here.
okay,
And the important part of that is that many years after my discharge, I was reading through the history of the 3rd Infantry and found the picture of the bridge that had been sunk by the tank, the first tank Treading would have crossed. And in that same book, there were listings of people who had received the Bronze Star and the Silver Star. My name was in both of them. And I then wrote to Congressman Solomon, and he helped in getting me the actual medals together with the write-ups as to what they were for.
okay.
And I now have those. Those are back here.
Okay, so you received the Bronze Star and the Silver Star.
Yeah.
And did you receive later on a POW medal?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, I know you're eligible for that. Yeah, if you want, I can see if I can, through our agency, maybe get the paperwork for you, or, you know, get that started anyway.
Well, that would be nice. I'm sure my grandchildren would like to see that kind of stuff.
Okay, and also it's interesting, you mentioned you had an interest in flying. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, that was after a long time in civilian life, and when I turned to 58, I always had an interest. When I turned 58, I was going to retire in 2 years, And I said to my wife, okay, it's time I learned to fly. And Richmore Aviation up at Saratoga, and I went up there and learned how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then enjoyed flying around the country off and on, and taking my wife and sometimes the children
Mm-hmm.
up for a ride.
Now, what kind of plane did you fly?
It was mostly the C-172, not C, listen to me.
Cessna. Yeah.
Cessna 172. But I like the Piper. Can't think of the name.
Oh, okay. The Tomahawk or the Cherokee or?
4-passenger, whatever.
Okay. And you were also a volunteer at the.
At the Air Museum, I
Air
spent
Museum.
20 years
Okay.
after I retired as a volunteer over there.
Okay. Like a docent there?
Yes, to some degree, and actually for a period of short time, about 2 years, I was in charge of the whole operation,
Oh.
simply because they lost their director. And I said, well, I'm not a director of a museum, but I will handle the day-to-day whatever's going on.
Mhm.
I had learned enough about it at that time.
Okay.
And so I did that until they got a new director.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your interview.
Well, thank you. And let's see. These are the papers that include the write-ups that
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll just take those. Okay. Well, thank you again.